It's no secret that I love classic first-person shooters. It's also no secret that I've been really hyped for Shadow Warrior 3. I've talked about it a couple times already, even making a video discussing what I hoped to see in it. It was definitely my most anticipated game of 2022, and I'm happy to say that I really enjoyed it. I've been a fan of the Shadow Warrior games for years now, but I have never made any reviews for the other games. So before I get into my thoughts about Shadow Warrior 3, I'm going to briefly discuss the other games in the franchise, as my feeling towards those games helps contextualize some of what I feel about Shadow Warrior 3. The original Shadow Warrior, released in 1997, is considered by many to be part of the unholy trinity of build engine titles. There were, of course, more build engine games, but none of them were as popular as Duke Nukem 3D, Blood, and of course, Shadow Warrior. If you've ever played a classic FPS game like Doom or Duke Nukem or Wolfenstein, you know exactly what you're getting into out of Shadow Warrior. A smart-talking, badass main character carrying a bunch of big guns, complete with violent, fast-paced first-person combat and handcrafted level design filled with secrets and secret areas to find.
Ancient Chinese secret.
As Shadow Warrior was made with the build engine, it also had the level of interactivity that those games were known for. Shadow Warrior leaned heavily into Asian stereotypes, as a sort of parody of bad kung fu movies of the 80s and 90s. It's a really solid game. If you like classic first-person shooters, you will definitely like Shadow Warrior. There's not a lot to complain about. It's hard as hell too, so you definitely need to stay on your toes. The original Shadow Warrior introduces us to a lot of mainstay ideas. The main characters, Wang, his rival Orochizilla, the demon enemies, and of course the sword combat that became synonymous with the series reboot. Though in this game, the sword was really just more of a melee weapon that you use when you ran out of ammo, like Duke's boot, Caleb's pitchfork, or Doomguy's fist and chainsaw. The series lay dormant for over a decade before it was finally rebooted by Shadow Warrior 2013. For those keeping track, Shadow Warrior released a year before Wolfenstein New Order and 3 years before Doom 2016, and only a few months after Rise of the Triad 2013, making it one of the games that kicked off the boomer shooter revival that we still see popular today. Shadow Warrior 2013 took much of the design and mechanics that made the original Shadow Warrior so great and modernized them for the 2010s. It still featured fast-paced gameplay, holding a bunch of weapons at one time, intense gore and violence, crude humor, abundant dick jokes, and handcrafted levels, but now featured an upgrade system, a dash mechanic, yes, a dash that predates Doom Eternal, a magic system, multi-directional sword combat, and a surprisingly deep and enjoyable story with full cutscenes.
I'm leaving here with a Nobitsura cargo. I can pay for it with money, or I can pay for it with blood.
In that case, to business, Mr. $2 million.
My name is Wang. Let's make a deal.
And I do want to emphasize how good the story in Shadow Warrior 2013 really is. Usually, with classic first-person shooters, the stories are near non-existent, really just existing to provide a backdrop for the gameplay. But Shadow Warrior 2013 actually told a really good story. Seeing Wang develop from smart-mouthed hired mercenary to shit-talking demon-slaying badass. I especially liked seeing his friendship with Hoji develop throughout the game, and I actually felt really sad when, spoiler alert, Hoji dies at the end of the game, sacrificing himself for the greater good. The game wasn't perfect though. The gunplay is a little weak, especially going back to playing it now. It feels a little stiff and slow compared to how fluid boomer shooters have become. Guns are essentially worthless too, especially on harder difficulties, which I play at. This is because of sort of three design choices that really hurt the gun combat in Shadow Warrior 2013. One is that there's a severe lack of ammo due to all the drops in the game being procedurally generated. Sometimes you would be completely out of ammo, but wouldn't be able to find any because the game would give you something else like money instead of ammo. Enemies were also complete bullet sponges, eating up all of your ammo and refusing to die. The best way to heal in the game was by using magic and special attacks with the sword. Because of this, magic and the sword became way too prominent, and every fight basically came down to dancing around the arena, spamming circle slash to maintain constant healing, slashing away at complete tanks of enemies, and dashing away to use magic to heal when needed. It was especially bad in boss fights, which just take forever. While I really liked the story and think the level design is good and overall enjoy the game and would recommend it, I just found the combat to be really tedious after a while. And it was definitely the thing that needed tweaking the most. In comes Shadow Warrior 2, released in 2016. Much of what Shadow Warrior 2013 did wrong was fixed in Shadow Warrior 2. However, much of what Shadow Warrior 2013 did right was done so wrong in Shadow Warrior 2. Gun combat was greatly improved. Guns felt better to shoot, movement felt better too. The sword combat was toned down a little bit, but was still a fun alternative to shooting. The magic was more streamlined. The overall feel of combat, especially the gun combat, was a huge improvement over the 2013 game. But Shadow Warrior 2 was a looter shooter akin to Borderlands or Destiny instead of a true retro shooter. And I personally think that design decision really hurt that game overall. The surprisingly well-told narrative and interesting characters and witty dialogue were gone, replaced by static cutscenes of people talking and giving generic RPG-style side quests where you have to go off and kill large numbers of enemies. The handcrafted levels were all replaced with giant procedurally generated environments with randomly spawned enemies. And as a looter shooter, there was way too much loot in this game. It got overwhelming to the point that I stopped caring about all the different weapon equips that I would find. The stat differences were marginal, and once I got something that I liked, I just sold all the rest of it. It definitely didn't add anything to the Shadow Warrior experience and just overcomplicated the game. But there were things I liked about it. I liked some of the characters, most notable Amiona, Hoji's sister, makes a return. Some of the humor is pretty good, especially some of the more absurd side quests, like finding Amiona's leaked sex tapes.
In any event, I am certain he is there now.
Well, what should I cut off him? Please say his cock, his cock, his cock, his cock. Please, please, please.
Any body part will do.
Yes!
But the hand is usually easiest.
Oh, fuck.
I liked the weapon variety too. There are dozens of guns and swords in this game, each with a different archetype. Pistols, machine guns, chain guns, shotguns, bows, and melee weapons. It is a little much, but I like that it gives the player a bit of choice in how they want to play, and you can make your own unique weapon wheels. The leveling system was also improved on the first game, offering a greater variety of boosts to level into, giving the game a bit of a RPG feel as you build yourself in a way that fits your playstyle. It's not very Shadow Warrior, but it's a competent looter shooter in that regard. The tanky enemies were still a problem, only slightly improved, as high-level enemies, and especially bosses, were extremely spongy and tedious to fight. In an attempt to balance this, an elemental system was implemented in which enemies had an element attached to them, and an element that you could attach to your weapons that they were weak to. So then you always wanted to make sure that you had one fire, one ice, one lightning, one poison, and one non-elemental weapon in your wheel to deal with different types of enemies. One of the absolute worst things about the game though was that there was no penalty for death. If you died, you just spawned to the nearest checkpoint, lost some money, and enemies refilled their health. You didn't need to replay levels or start arenas over or anything really. There was no reason to be careful and avoid death aside from enemies refilling their health. It was an overall fun game that, like its predecessor, still suffered from being tedious at times. So with all that said, I am pleased to say that Flying Wild Hog learned from their mistakes of both the first two reboot titles, fixed those mistakes, doubled down on what they did right, took some inspiration from Doom Eternal, and released the absolute best Shadow Warrior game yet. Yes, I found Shadow Warrior 3 to be the best Shadow Warrior game. Prepare your dislikes now. Shadow Warrior 3 picks up right where Shadow Warrior 2 left off, with Lo Wang fighting the giant demon dragon. Lo Wang ultimately loses, the world is left in ruin, most of the characters are dead and don't return, and Lo Wang is suffering with the guilt of failing. It would be like if Doom Guy lost to the Icon of Sin. He lost his mojo, his usually cocky attitude is shaken. I actually really liked this setup and think it provides ample motivation for the game going forward. Lo Wang teams up with his nemesis Orochizilla once again, as well as Zilla's girlfriend Motoko, Motoko's spirit raccoon, and it resurrected Hoji to defeat the dragon and reclaim the world. In pure retro shooter fashion, the story is off to the side for the most part, though there are a lot of cutscenes, luckily all skippable. I was a little worried that the humor might be toned down, just given the general lack of crude humor in games nowadays, but it's still there. Dick and fart jokes abound.
So, how do you feel?
God. Yeah, no, not that I don't appreciate what you did, but no naked hugging.
I'm glad you're here, buddy.
Though there aren't any bathing anime girls, so points docked.
You want to wash Wang? Or you want to watch Wang wash Wang?
The game looks really good, I thought. Graphically, it's impressive. Nothing insane, but it looks good. I played on high at 1080p. I know some people have reported that cutscenes aren't in-engine, and as a result, they play back at 1080 regardless of what resolution you're playing the game at, and that can be jarring, but I didn't experience that as I played on 1080 anyways. My computer is pretty dated at this point. I'm rocking a 1070 graphics card on a laptop, but my performance was pretty stable on high at 1080p. I achieved a solid 60 frames per second for the majority of my playthrough. I really only experienced some dips when first booting up the game, but it would fix itself really quickly, so I was pleased with that. I personally really liked the art direction too. It's a very vibrantly colorful game, reminiscent of Doom Eternal. Yes, I mentioned Doom Eternal again. It won't be the last time. All of the guns look very fitting for Shadow Warrior, and I really liked the demon designs, especially the heavy demons, which were all really creative, all taking inspiration from an element of Asian fantasy. I know a lot of people like the soundtrack, but I honestly didn't really notice it that much while playing. Nothing really stuck out to me. I kind of equate that to focusing on the combat experience, as I felt the same way with Doom Eternal when that first came out too. The soundtrack gets buried underneath all of the chaos going on in the arenas.
Shot. No? Oh yeah, because you were too busy dying.
This brings me to an elephant in the room, and from what I see coming from the community is irrational complaint number 1 of 3. The voice acting. There's a lot of people upset that the voice actors were changed for Shadow Warrior 3. Jason Liebrecht and Eugene Lee, who voiced Lo Wang and Orochizilla respectively in 2013's Shadow Warrior and in Shadow Warrior 2. They did a great job as the characters. I like their performances. They were both replaced by Mike Mo and Seung-Wan Cho, respectively. Now, I don't care to get into the politics of the whole thing, I just want to comment on their performances. Were they good fits? And yeah, they absolutely were. Zilla sounds a little different, but not in a negative way.
Lo Wang, I thought I smelled comic books and hand lotion.
You lost a hand the last time we met, Zilla. I don't recommend testing me again.
Oh, I wouldn't dream of it. An old man like me is no match for the mighty Lo Wang. But I'm curious, what's your angle here? Why have you come for this monstrosity?
Hey, everyone else seems to wanna. I just wanted to hang with the cool kids.
Turn back, Lo Wang. She is beyond help now. There was a time when I thought this poor thing might be my greatest achievement. But alas, it appears she did not have the inner fortitude.
You may blame yourself for what happened to your friends. You've already lost everything. What else do you have to lose? You can join me in this fraught and possibly futile quest and go out in a blaze of glory. Don't you want to put an end to that giant slimy lizard and get us all a little payback?
What do you think, Hoji? Should I trust this old son of a bitch? Fuck it. I'm in, you son of a bitch.
The new voice still fits the character, and being completely honest, if Flying Wild Hog hadn't said anything, I would not have noticed a change in Lo Wang's voice at all. Mike Mo sounds almost exactly like Jason Liebrecht. Hoji, who was voiced by Alex Dobrenko, he's the same guy who voiced him in 2013.
Before we do this, I need to know your name.
Oh, that's sweet.
If you know a demon's name, you can control it.
Is that so?
That's what all the books say.
There's just one problem. It is written that no human tongue can pronounce a demon's name.
Try me.
All right. My name is OG.
OG.
But it's impossible. How did... You must be the one. The one that the prophecy spoke of.
Really? What else does the prophecy say?
Why, that the one will also believe any goddamn idiot thing you make up on the spot.
Get out of my car.
Oh yeah, like you're not a complete egomaniac, pretending to be some kind of hero when all you ever do is make things worse.
So this is the thanks I get for trying to save your stupid ass?
Excuse me?
I'm only here because of you. You're my last friend. My only friend. And if you can't save the people you care about, what's the point of saving anything?
You are such a...
But I digress. All I really care about is if the voice actors did a good job. Voice actors change frequently in games, and it's fair to have a preference and favorites. I have my preferences too. I get it. I don't think I would love hearing someone other than John St. John voicing Duke Nukem, but this isn't the first time Lo Wang has been changed. John William Galt, who passed away earlier this year, rest in peace, voiced Lo Wang in the original Shadow Warrior game, and he sounded completely different from Liebrecht.
You're no mess with Lo Wang.
Mike Moe sounds dead on like the Lo Wang that we've become familiar with. Looking at these voices objectively, everyone involved in Shadow Warrior 3 did a great job, and the crude humor and foul language was kept intact, so what the fuck ever. As with all games though, gameplay is the most important element. Like I already said, Shadow Warrior 3 fixed all of the issues that I had with gameplay from the first two Shadow Warrior reboot titles and perfected what was already done well. So needless to say, I really enjoyed the gameplay element of this game. This game went back to its classic shooter roots, which brings me to irrational complaint number 2 of 3. This game isn't a looter shooter anymore, and thank God for it. Look, I know Shadow Warrior 2 has a fan base, but that game is the black sheep, not the other way around. There were a lot of classic Shadow Warrior fans that weren't happy with the new direction and wanted a return to form, and thankfully they listened. Gone are the tanky enemies, gone are the elemental attacks, gone are the overabundance of loot, gone are the tedious side quests. Shadow Warrior 3 is a fast-paced, stripped-down, arena-style boomer shooter, as God intended. It being more of a classic-style boomer shooter means that the level design is more linear again. Almost too linear, being completely honest. Gone are the days of hunting for keys to open doors in a maze-like level. That said, I do think that the arena-style design of Shadow Warrior 3 and games like Modern Doom still appeal to those same base feelings, something I'll get into in a little bit. Though I do wish Shadow Warrior 3 did have a bit of that delinear key hunting aspect to it. It's not as prominent in other modern retro shooters like Doom or Wolfenstein either, but even Doom has levels like Super Gornest, which at least feel more delinear in a way. Shadow Warrior 3 doesn't really have anything like that. Classic first-person shooters, especially build engine titles, were kind of known for their cryptic secret areas, ways to find more weapons, health, and ammo. In past Shadow Warrior titles, ammo, money, or fortune cookies with a joke and experience were hidden in various parts of the level. Off the beaten path, maybe in inconspicuous rooms, or more traditionally behind fake walls and hidden doors. And these secret areas only give you orbs towards upgrades. I like that the secret areas were included at all, but they don't have that same special feel that secret areas do in classic first-person shooters. Shadow Warrior 3 does have platforming challenges though. It introduces wall running and climbing and a grapple hook. I absolutely love the grapple hook's inclusion of this game. You can use it to swing on beams, pull yourself on ledges, and pull yourself towards enemies. It provides a nice verticality to level design and combat and adds an extra level of complexity to the arena's designs. I know people are eventually going to get sick of them, but I love that all these first-person shooters have grapple hooks in them. It was one of the best parts of Doom Eternal, it was one of the best parts in Halo Infinite, and it's one of my favorite parts in Shadow Warrior 3.
Holy shit! Whoa, that was freaking rad! Is that a grappling hook?
Everybody has one now, man. It's almost like mandatory.
Love it, brother! Gotta keep up with the competition. I get it.
Speaking of arenas, the core game is built around the arena battles. Now, I've heard people say that arena battles aren't very quote-unquote classic first-person shooter, and I don't really agree. The purpose of the maze-like levels in classic first-person shooters were to test your navigational skills. Could you navigate a maze, manage your resources, and make it to the end? Combat encounters were more there to break up just walking through hallways. Yes, in classic first-person shooters, monsters were already on the map. Monsters did spawn in through monster closets. How is a monster closet opening, unleashing a bunch of enemies into an area, any different than an arena where enemies spawn in? And these combat encounters usually happened in arena-like environments anyway. Combat was still the focus of those games. Just because you were also navigating a maze doesn't change that. Arena battles in modern boomer shooters also appeal to that same navigational skill. It's just a different kind of navigation, one that is more combat focused, but it appeals to the same thing. Instead of navigating a maze, you're navigating an arena encounter. You still need to pay attention to where you are, pay attention to where enemies are, and manage your resources. The combat itself is like a puzzle or a maze. So while you're not literally walking through a maze looking for hidden doors and keys, you still need to approach combat encounters thoughtfully. Which weapons am I going to use for which enemies? Are there any environmental traps that I should be aware of? How am I doing on health and ammo? Shadow Warrior 3 takes it a step further by introducing traps in the arenas. Now you can trigger a trap by shooting a button and kill a demon in gory, chaotic fashion. The combat is where Shadow Warrior 3 excels. The comparisons to Doom Eternal are obvious and plentiful, so I'm not going to dance around any of it. The combat in Shadow Warrior 3 is the best it's ever been for the franchise. It's incredibly fast and frantic. The game brings back the sword, magic, and gun combat, still holding several guns at once, but gives each of these elements more purpose. Killing enemies with your gun gives health. Killing enemies with your sword gives ammo and builds your finisher. Magic is now tied to a cooldown and is mainly used for pushing enemies off ledges or into spikes. The only resource missing from the equation was armor, which Shadow Warrior 3 features no armor, which I thought was kind of weird. If I had to make any suggestions to Shadow Warrior 3's combat, it would be maybe expand the magic a little more, beyond just the chi push, and then maybe magic could grant armor. So then you'd have guns for health, sword for ammo, and magic for armor. Kind of like glory kills for health, chainsaw for ammo, and flame belch for armor function in Doom Eternal. But even without the enhanced magic and armor, I really liked how this system functioned. The design of gun gives health and sword gives ammo means that you will regularly be switching between the two, and I think that's a genius way to encourage using your entire arsenal. To further encourage use of your entire arsenal, quick switching weapons bypasses the need to reload your guns. Reloading has been a part of Shadow Warrior since the original 1997 game, though you couldn't manually reload in that, so it makes sense that it was included in 3, but I love that you can skip needing to reload by quickly swapping weapons. And quick swapping feels good, too. It's near immediate, and you can pull off some good weapon combos this way. My 3 favorite guns to use in combos were the Shuriken Spitter, a crossbow which shoots giant saw blade-like shurikens, the Basilisk, this game's railgun, and the Crimson Bull, a grenade launcher. Upgrading the Shuriken Spitter gives it a stunning attack. Stunning an enemy, and then following up with the Basilisk or Crimson Bull combo just felt so satisfying. I also really liked the Riot Gun, this game's shotgun, which could be upgraded to utilize full auto, and the Sidekicks, a fan favorite since the original Shadow Warrior, and I enjoyed mopping up enemies with them. Honestly, the only gun that I felt was a little on the weak side was the Outlaw, the starting pistol, but even that had its uses and I enjoyed using it for what it was.
And who's got the BFG now?
This is just...
The sword is toned down from past entries, but it still has special attacks by holding a direction and slashing. Upgrading this gives fire, ice, or lightning slashes as well. There's also a new finishing meter. Filling it up lets you perform finisher attacks on an enemy. Depending on the demon, you'll need more or less of the finisher bar filled, but using it instantly kills the demon and gives you access to gore weapons. Gore weapons have kind of existed in past Shadow Warrior with the demon heart and ogre heads. In Shadow Warrior 3, they can grant everything from a base health buff, to a powerful sword, to an eyeball that flies around and attacks enemies, to giant Gatling guns. Every one of these weapons are fun to use and another thing adding to the combat strategy. Do you want to use the finisher on a simple fodder demon, but then get the health buff, or do you want to keep it for a tougher enemy later on? Maybe you'll want to split it up and kill 2 lesser enemy demons. Speaking of the demons, not only were the designs creative, but their functionality in the battlefield was really done well too. You have the basic fodder demons, basically just providing harassment, but then you have heavy demons filling in specific roles. The Oni Hanma are big tanky enemies that rely on melee attacks, so they provide up-close pressure and chase you around an arena. Hattoris can deflect your bullets, making it harder to kill them when pressured, as you need to focus on them to break their guard. The Megura twins can bury themselves underground, leaving you open to surprise attacks from below. The Slinky Jakku are very mobile. The Seeking Chakra can fly around and harass you from afar, and the Gassy Obarian is this game's Mancubus, a tanky enemy able to harass you at both close and long range. All of these enemies are well implemented in the combat arenas and require you to think a little bit as you take them out. For example, the Laser Shogun is an armored head that fires lasers. Since his face is armored, he is hard to kill from up front, so the best strategy is to get behind him. But he floats around and is mobile, and you're also being harassed by other demons. So a good way to kill him is to chi push him, which spins him around, and then use various weapons to kill him quickly before he can spin back around with his armor. I was also pleasantly surprised that the bosses, while there's only a couple, are vastly improved upon. They aren't just bullet sponges that you need to dance around and spam attacks at until they die. They actually require strategy. You need to learn their attack patterns, recognize attack cues, and they're actually really fun instead of tedious. Defeating them actually feels rewarding.
Holy shit. That is so fucked up.
Shadow Warrior 3 is a streamlined, fast-paced, action-paced, all-killer, no-filler, 6-ish hour-long experience. Yes, the game is only 6 to 8 hours long depending on how long you spend looking for secrets. This brings me to Irrational Complaint 3 of 3. Yes, this game is short, but people need to stop equating game length with game quality. There are longer games, 15, 30, 60 hours, whatever, that I have never finished and have no interest in playing because I just don't enjoy them. I enjoyed nearly every second of Shadow Warrior 3. Not every game needs to be the 60-hour open-world slog. A nice, concise, direct, no-filler game like Shadow Warrior 3 is perfect sometimes. I like that I can just jump in, enjoy it, and jump out. Again, stop equating game length to game value. They aren't the same thing. While I loved Shadow Warrior 3, it's not perfect, and I do have a couple minor complaints. First off, I ran into some glitches with completing in-game challenges. 2 in particular, killing enough enemies while wall running, and healing myself enough times. It seems like if I died, the counter would stop for these 2 challenges. This would require me to quit out of the game and relaunch it to restart those counters again. And if I died, I had to do it all over again. This was extremely annoying as I was trying to complete all the challenges and fully upgrade myself. Unfortunately, while I was able to complete the challenges by the end, I missed some of the secret orbs and was unable to fully upgrade myself. You are unable to replay levels, so if you miss an orb, that's it. No we're going back to get it. I also found the game pretty easy, even playing on hard mode. I wish that there was a little more challenge at times. All of the issues that I had with the game and the issues of its short length would be alleviated if the game had some sort of level selects akin to Doom Eternal's, where you could go back and replay levels with all of your upgrades and guns. Replaying arenas with a full arsenal is one of my favorite aspects of Doom Eternal, and it really adds to the gameplay value. This would eliminate the frustration of missing orbs and being unable to finish the game with all upgrades too. A New Game Plus or challenge mode type thing would also be nice. Something that gives a little more challenge and gives a reason to play through the game again. This would help a 6-hour experience become a 12-hour experience or an 18-hour experience. Something that gets the player to replay it over and over again. On my first playthrough, I finished the game on hard, completed all the challenges, and got every achievement except for one, the one for getting all the upgrades. Another complaint relates to the overall universe cohesion and identity. I said that I liked the art direction and demon design, and I do. I think the new demons fit Shadow Warrior very well. However, none of the previous demons make a return in this game. I know none of the original game's enemies returned for the reboot series, which opted into making their own roster of various demons, but the demons that appeared in the 2013 game and Shadow Warrior 2 should have appeared in Shadow Warrior 3. None of them are in it. Not the Berserker, the Warlord, or Shaman. I guess the Oni Hanma is similar to the Warlord, but it's still kind of weird that the demons from previous games didn't get repurposed for the new combat loop. There aren't even any demon bunnies. Killing bunnies causes a powerful demon dressed in bunny ears to appear, but not a demon bunny. Also, as I touched on, the secret areas just give you upgrade orbs. There aren't any fortune cookies, which were a staple for the franchise featured in every game. This kind of thing just made Shadow Warrior 3 feel a bit disjointed and disconnected from the rest of the games. I wish they would have brought back some of those familiar demons, even if they had to tweak their roles a little bit for the new combat loop. Despite these issues, Shadow Warrior 3 remains a great game, with some genuinely good platforming sections, taking advantage of fun features like the grappling hook, and especially well-designed arena combat experiences. Every Shadow Warrior game has been different from the game that came before it, but I personally love the direction that Shadow Warrior 3 took so much that I think it is the best in the franchise. I'm both excited and curious where the next game will take the series. Like I said, every Shadow Warrior game has been different from the last, so it really could be anything. No matter what direction the fourth game takes though, I'll still be there for my fix of Wang.